First and foremost, I want to say, Kahala Yahweh, by Shem HaMashiach Yahushua. So all praise to the Heavenly Father God, Yahweh, in the name is only begotten Son, Yahushua, who were in the call Jesus Christ. All right, Soldier Isaiah reporting in for another word to the wise, right? In this edition, we'll be speaking on the relevance of dwelling with wisdom, right? And behaving in manners that are conducive of a man that is of a wise countenance, of a wise disposition, right? Because when you read the scripture, it say what? The Most High. Let's get this. Wisdom of Solomon 7, right? This is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7, verse 28. It says, "For the Most High loveth none but him that dwelleth with wisdom." Scripture say what? The Most High doesn't love anybody apart from those that dwell with wisdom, right? Which is letting you know that the love of the Most High is conditional to having wisdom. One of the conditions of being loved from the Most High is dwelling with wisdom, right? That's not a light thing. To be a wise person isn't a light thing. And to be a fool also isn't a light thing, right? Because being foolish takes you out of the realm of the love of the Most High, right? Verse 29, it says, "For she is more beautiful than the sun, and above all the order of stars," right? Wisdom is more beautiful than the sun, and above all the order of the stars. Being compared with the light, she is found before it. For after this cometh night, right? Foolishness comes after this, right? The night and foolishness, the lack of light, the lack of having some form of illumination, right, is also synonymous with foolishness, right? Being ignorant, right? So for after this cometh night. Watch this. But vice, right? Your vices, right? Those negative attributes for yourself shall not prevail against wisdom, right? So though we all may have vices, though we all may fall, right? Those vices won't prevail. They won't overcome the wisdom within you, right? If you're actually dwelling with it, if you're actually seeking it wholeheartedly, right? Vice does not prevail against wisdom. Showing you that what? Wisdom is a defense, right? Let's get that, actually. Watch this. This is Ecclesiastes 7 and 12. It says, "For wisdom is a defense." Let's scroll up a little bit. Might be verse 11. It says, "Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun," right? As long as you're alive, the attaining of wisdom is good for you, especially if you get it and you have an inheritance to couple it with, right? It said wisdom is good with an inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, like it said just then, right? Vice would not prevail against wisdom. So what? Wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense, right? That inheritance that you receive is a defense. You know, money can be used in a multitude of ways, right? In a manner that it could defend you as well, right? But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it, right? The excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it, right? So we can't undermine the relevance of wisdom, right? The defense that it brings you, right? The excellency that it can cause in your life, right? The life that it brings, right? Because we think about it, Proverbs 21, right? Verse 16, what does it say? It says, "The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead," right? So if you are in a position where you are behaving in a manner that would suggest you have no understanding, that suggests you have no wisdom, right? You're just as though you're amongst those who are dead already, right? Those in the world, right? It says you wander out of the way of understanding, you remain in the congregation of the dead. Because what? That understanding, that knowledge, that wisdom brings life into you, right? It giveth life to them that have it, right? And it also is able to put life into those that you imputed into, right? So you want to utilize your tongue, you want to utilize your vessel as one that intakes life and takes wisdom and also imputes it into other people. Okay, what's that? Psalm 37. Let's get this. Psalm 37. Boom. Yep. The book of Psalms, chapter 37. We'll start at verse 29. It says, the righteous shall inherit the land and dwell therein forever. The mouth of the righteous speaketh wisdom, right? If you want to consider yourself righteous, right? If you want to be deemed righteous on this earth, you should be speaking wisdom. And his tongue talketh of judgment. It said, what? The law of his power is in his heart. None of his steps shall slide, right? But as you see, the mouth of the righteous speaketh wisdom, right? Letting you know that what? The mouth of the righteous, those who are deemed righteous on the earth, are going to be imputing their life into other people, right? Let's go to Sirach. But it's the only way you can actually attain wisdom. The only way you can actually attain wisdom is if you seek it. It doesn't just come to you randomly, right? You don't just randomly get wisdom. You have to meditate on things that are puzzling, so to say, right? You have to put effort in towards wisdom. Wisdom isn't something you just get randomly, right? This is the book of Sirach, chapter 38, verse 24. It said what? The wisdom of a learned man cometh by opportunity of leisure, right? A learned man can only attain the levels of wisdom that he gathers by taking opportunities of leisure. I mean, what? Sitting your ass down, actually reading the book, right? Sitting your ass down, actually thinking in a multifaceted, in a more complex manner, right? That only comes with leisure. You can't sit here and think extremely deep if you're at work. It just doesn't work like that unless you have a job that is conducive to such, like being a truck driver, right? Truck drivers are the only people that have maximum leisure while they're working, right? You have people that may do, like, security or something like that. But if you're in a venue of people and you're having to watch these people, you have all these things attacking your senses. You have smells, you have the visuals of people. You're having to watch these people and things that you're not able to stop and sincerely dive into complex matters, right? You may be able to start a thought, but to be able to finish a thought in a multifaceted, in a extremely complex manner, you can't do it. Most thoughts are very simple thoughts, right? Those beginner thoughts, right? Those surface level thoughts. And then you have to wait until you're off the clock. You have to wait till you actually are at home to begin to dive into those deeper thoughts, right? But that only comes by opportunity of leisure, right? So it would mean you have to make time for wisdom. And he that have little business shall become wise. A person that's always busy, a person that's always on the move, is a less likelihood that you will become wise. It's simple, but he that have little business shall become wise, right? Verse 25. How can he get wisdom that holdeth the plow? Right? If you're holding the plow, you out here, plowing gardens. How can you get wisdom? How can you can't read books? You can't have conversations like that. You're focusing on the task at hand, right? You can't focus on more than one thing. You can't be here and there in your mind at the same time. It doesn't work like that, right? Especially if you're seeking mastery, right? And they glory in the gold, that drive with oxen and is occupied in their labors, and whose talk is of bullocks. Right? Majority of your labor and your speech is going to be about the animals and the occurrences that happen while you're in the garden. Where is the time for wisdom in that? Right? He giveth his mind to make furrows, right? Those rows within your garden, your furrows, right? That's what you're giving your mind to. Let's make sure that this garden is in the perfect manner. This garden has the perfect architecture, right? Let me landscape. Let me be the proper landscape, right? And is diligent to give the kind fodder, right? Within that, you don't have time to be seeking wisdom, to be seeking high levels of wisdom, right? You may become wise within your craft, but that's not the same as seeking righteous wisdom, right? Verse 27, it says, so every carpenter and workmaster that laboreth night and day, and they that cut and grave seals, and are diligent to make great variety, and give themselves to counterfeit imagery, and watch to finish a work, right? Their mind is on, how can I make this piece of art that I'm creating, right? Or this tool that I'm creating, this house that I'm building, right? This boat that I'm building, et cetera, whatever it is that you may be building. You might be a swordsman, or a smith, right? They call it a swordsmith, right? Your whole responsibility is to create the artillery, right? And you're wondering to yourself, what is the best manner in which I can create this weapon, right? You can't. There's no way for you to be thinking about that and giving yourself completely over to that in all diligence into becoming the best at that, the master at that, and also mastering the law. It just doesn't work, right? You don't have enough leisure, right? But it says what? And are diligent to make great variety, and give themselves to counterfeit imagery, and to watch to finish a work. The smith also sitting by the annual, and considering the iron work, the vapor of the fire wasteth his flesh, right? And he fighteth with the heat of the furnace, right? How can you gain wisdom and your job is literally banging on iron all day, getting burnt with the fire coming out of the furnace, right? You're fighting with the heat of the furnace, sweating, right? All these fumes and stuff like that coming in your nose, smoke making you cough all day. You can't become wise from that. You can become a master of your craft, but you're not going to gain wisdom. The noise of the hammer and the annual is ever in his ears. How can you focus on deep thoughts when all you hear is banging and sweat getting in your eyes and smoke in your nose? You know, it's not conducive of an environment for somebody seeking wisdom, right? And majority of the environments that we find ourselves in outside of the leisure of our houses, outside of the leisure of going to the gym, outside of the leisure of being able to walk at the park, right? Taking your dog for a walk, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the environments that we find ourselves in aren't conducive for somebody that's actually seeking wisdom. Go to the library, right? You want wisdom? Go to the library. Go home, sit down, read a book, right? Read the Bible, read the Torah, read the Gospels, right? Read the prophets if you want wisdom. You're not getting wisdom by going to work, right? And his eyes look still upon the pattern of the thing that he maketh, right? He focused. What does this look like, right? He turning it over and over, trying to make sure all of the edges on the blades are perfect, right? Making sure that the carving and you know the workmanship that he put on the handle is perfect, right? The imagery that he's trying to portray, right? Making sure that the point right there where the crevice, he's trying to put a certain stone inside of it or something like that, right? It all has to be perfect. That is where his mind is fixated on, not wisdom. And that's what happens with a lot of us. We're fixated on mastering whatever it is that we do for work. And it's not allowing us to become as wise as possible. But the scriptures say what? You have to be a slave to wisdom if you really want her. Right? We find ourselves as slaves to our crafts and not slaves to wisdom. Right? But you got to dwell with wisdom first and foremost. It says what? He setteth his mind to finish his work and watcheth to polish it perfectly. So doeth the potter sitting at his work and turning the wheel about with his feet. Right? Who is always carefully setting his work, always, and maketh all his work by number. Right? He's making as many pots as possible. Right? And he perfect this pot. He's going to try to make it as many times as possible. He's trying to sell as many pots as possible. This is how, he makes a living for himself. By perfecting this craft is how he makes a living for himself. Right? So he's always carefully setting his work. Him mastering it prevents him from mastering the works of the law. Verse 30, he fashioned the clay with his arm and boweth down his strength before his feet. He applied himself to lead it over, and he is diligent to make clean the furnace. All these trust to their hands, and everyone is wise in his work. Without these cannot a city be inhabited, right? Without these men going about to the mastery of their craft, to the mastery of their trade, a city cannot be inhabited. We need these people, but we also need those of wisdom. We also need the wise men, right? And they shall not dwell where they will, nor go up and down. Verse 33, they shall not be sought for in public counsel. But these aren't the men that when something is going on, was going on, an important matter, and we need advice on something within our nation, we're not going to the baker. We're not going to the potter. We're not going to the ironsmith. We're not going to those people. Right? We're going to the judges. We're going to the men of wisdom, the men of understanding. Right? Nor sit is verse 33 again. It says, they shall not be sought for in public counsel, nor sit high in the congregation. Right? You're just a regular man in this regard. You're a master of your work, but you're not. The ability to attain wisdom is more impressive than being able to master some of the most fine pottery. They shall not sit on the judge's seat, nor understand the sentence of judgment. They cannot declare justice in judgment, and they shall not be found where parables are spoken. Even though you're not looked at as a man of renown, because you go about, right, focusing on your the mastery of your craft, right? But they will maintain the state of the where you still have responsibility. But nevertheless, there is a more hefty responsibility of them who have wisdom. Now and that's why the Most High loves them. Because even though those regular men, those everyday men, those blue-collar men, us blue-collar men, right, maintain the state of the world, and our desire is in the work of our craft, right? There is a more importance, there is a higher level of importance for those of wisdom, for the men of righteous understanding, right? And that is why the Most High sets his love on those people. You have to be aware of it. All right, you go there over to Sirach 14. Boom. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 14, verse 20. It says what? Blessed is the man that doeth meditate good things in wisdom, and that reason of holy things by his understanding. He that considereth her ways in his heart shall also have understanding in her secrets. Go after her as one that traceth and lie in wait in her ways. He that prieth in at her windows shall also hearken at her doors. Right? It says, he that prieth in at her windows. If you're focused on other things, how could you be focused on breaking into the house of wisdom? He said, you got to pry in at her windows. You got to want wisdom so bad that you're trying to go and steal her. Right? Like a stalker. She also hearkened at her doors. It's to the point where you might see those movies, right? Where, the dude is trying to break in, but next thing you know, somebody's home and they let him in through the front door. Because they was lonely anyway. They was waiting on somebody to come and spice up their life anyway. Right? She will also hearken at her doors. He that doeth lodge near her house, she also fasten a pin in her walls. Right? She'll make space for you. He shall pitch his tent nigh unto her, and shall lodge in a lodging where good things are. He shall set his children under her shelter. Right after you have attained wisdom, right, righteous judgment, righteous understanding, you should also expect that your children shall live under the shelter of their wisdom, and shall lodge under her branches. By her shall be covered. By her he shall be covered from heat. Right? Wisdom shall be a shade tree in the summer heat, and in her glory shall he dwell. Right? And she will bring you glory. Right? When you dwell amongst wisdom, when you pitch your tent near wisdom, right, you will dwell in glory. Right? But like you said, those that dwell in the locations where they're always working, where they're always trying to master their craft, they're not going to glory. They're not going to be glorified. They're not going to be looked at as a man of renown. Right? You're not going to be put in a high esteem. You're not going to be sought after. Right? Only those with wisdom are sought after. Right? In public matters. Right? So consider that in your doings, man. Consider that in your doings, and consider, what do I want to be known for? Do I want to be known for something in which I have mastered on this earth? Right? Do I want to become a master of things? Right? Or a thing, right? Whatever craft it is that you select. Or do you want to be somebody that sits in a renowned location, or sits in a seat, right? The judge's seat, because you have committed yourself to wisdom, right? And her works. Right? Dwell with wisdom, though. All inclusive. Wisdom is all inclusive. Okay? Right? And with that, I'm going to say shalom.